Back again, it is your host, Sean Meyers, here on the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling for this Trending Topics segment of the show. I'm joined by Justin Lowery. Justin, welcome back. And, when you and I were talking a couple days ago, I said, I want to think of a topic that'll be fun and interesting where we could sort of put on our creative hats, if you will, because truthfully, you, to a much larger extent, and myself, we both had complaints about the WWE product recently. Heading into SummerSlam, we think that a lot of things aren't being presented as well as they could. So I came up with the idea, we present maybe not an entire card, in your case at least, I kind of went a little bit above and beyond, how we would book SummerSlam. And kind of my mindset was, you can't change reality. So if someone's injured, you can't magically make them heal. You're not going to switch guys from Raw and SmackDown at this stage of the game. You're not going to bring in Kenny Omega or something like that. So going off of the real rosters as they stand today, what would we have done different over, let's say, the past month's time to lead up to SummerSlam and the matches? So, before I get into my specifics, what do you think is kind of missing, or where is this pay-per-view's card in terms of, on a scale of 1 to 10, I guess, the appeal factor to you at this point?
5. I'm going to go 5. Mainly because there's way too many rematches for a SummerSlam card. I mean, I honestly think it's atrocious how many rematches that we're getting. That does nothing for me. It shows a lack of creativity from creative. I mean, I'm surprised Vince is okay with that. I don't need to see. Well, Dolph and Seth are going to, I'm sure, put on a great match. I just have no one to see it again. I have no one to see Lesnar and Roman again. I have no one to see Finn and Corbin again. It's just, it's just,
Yeah, that sound you made, I don't know how to spell it exactly, or maybe even pronounce it, but that's the feeling a lot of people have. I will say, the Raw matches, to me, just when you're having what is, the summer version of WrestleMania, I don't think you can afford to have matches that we've already seen in the past 2 or 3 months, and matches that, as you and I have mentioned, Justin, actually are a step below the stipulations that we saw as recently as Extreme Rules in Pittsburgh. So I think there's a lot of issues with this card, and as a result, I'm going to kind of bring forward my matches. I've come up with 11 matches, and I'll preface it by saying it really, I'll include a 12th as well. That's probably what we're going to get, about 11, 12 matches. You're going to have maybe 3 on the pre-show, which will likely run 2 hours. Then you're going to have, a 5-hour show, 4.5-hour show. We're looking at probably 6+ hours. I mean, if it gets to 7, I wouldn't be surprised. So you're gonna have a lot of matches. These matches are going to get a lot of time. So here's what I've come up with. Some of which will stay the same, but most of which I think there was better alternatives. And if you want to, you could chime in after each one, or I could kind of just run down the whole thing. First one that I'm changing is the Universal title match. Obviously, Brock Lesnar is involved. He's your champion. He's going, in my dream scenario, against Seth Rollins. And Seth Rollins, I thought, finished the storyline with Dolph Ziggler at Extreme Rules. You have a number 1 contenders match. He needs to win that. He was, and I think still is, the hottest guy in the company in terms of his in-ring work. He's putting on clinics every single time he goes out there. And the fans, naturally, since February, have been behind him. So that's the guy I want to see. We've seen interaction between Rollins and Lesnar in the ring before, but never one-on-one, I don't believe. And, I think it would be a great match that ultimately would lead to Seth Rollins being the most deserving of all guys on Raw as being the Universal Champion. So to me, that's a much better alternative than the Roman match we've seen before.
Not a bad choice. I think it would be a great match. I would also change the Universal title match. I had 2 options in my mind. I couldn't really settle on just one, so I'm going to give you both. Roman versus Braun. Braun, picking that day as the day he was cashing in. Like, he's so big, he doesn't need a surprise attack. I'm doing it. That match, because I think we'd all be excited to see Braun win the title.
Wait, so you said Roman versus Braun. You mean Brock versus Braun then? Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yep, you're good.
Brock versus Strowman. Like, I'm cashing in at SummerSlam. I'm telling you when. I'm telling you what time. Like, I don't need to sneak up. Like, that. There's a storyline in itself, and the crowd wants to see him win the title. And maybe you can get back that little extra something that he's missing right now. The other option I thought of, which probably never would have happened, would actually be Finn. Again, there's the building storyline that he never got his rematch for the title. There was talk about him facing, Brock at Royal Rumble, I believe, a couple months ago, and Vince changed that. You bring back the demon gimmick, the kids, the crowd would eat that up. I do think that match could have been something special. Those would have been my two options for the Universal title match.
And it makes Finn a much bigger star than what he's been doing recently.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for faces, kids love a guy in face paint. I love the Ultimate Warrior and Sting growing up, partly because they're in face paint. I mean, and he not only does the face paint, but the whole chest. I mean, he does the whole gimmick. I mean, we haven't seen that in so long. It would have made it feel very special at SummerSlam.
SmackDown, I'm not changing a thing for their WWE title. I think Joe and AJ is the right way. I've liked what they've done so far. Not thrilled with how Joe sort of just became the number one contender after doing almost nothing, but the match itself, no complaints. I'm keeping that. I'm happy with that match.
Oh, I agree. I don't know if anybody would complain about that match.
Likewise, SmackDown, so far with the big matches, they're getting it right. Daniel Bryan and The Miz, I'm sticking with that. I'm not changing anything. Again, I thought initially maybe they would hold off until WrestleMania, but when you think about SmackDown doesn't have as big of a roster, you don't know 100% Daniel Bryan's health. Even if he does resign with the company, is he going to be physically able to make it till WrestleMania? So you do it now. It makes sense. Don't hold off any longer. This match certainly is a big one at SummerSlam, so I think it's the right decision to have it now, and I think those guys, with their exchanges and what they can do in the ring, The Miz is criminally underrated for what he's done in the ring in 2018. It's going to be a classic.
I agree with everything you said. I mean, I do feel like this match is WrestleMania worthy, but this is August. To hold all the way off until the end of March, beginning of April, that's a long ways away. And like you said, with SmackDown, even if this was Raw, that's still a long time to keep those guys apart from interacting when everybody's clamoring for it. Don't touch it. It should be one of the main attractions on the card. Hopefully it gets positioned right on the card. Because whatever comes after that, I don't think the crowd's going to be as into.
Let's talk about the women's matches. I like Ronda Rousey. I completely understand her star power and her attraction. I don't like her getting a title match. Once again, her second ever match was against Nia Jax for the title. That one ended with Bliss cashing in and winning the title. And now it's technically her fourth match, her third pay-per-view match, and she gets another title match against Alexa. I don't like it. I don't like the matchup right now. I think it's too early. I think she could be doing something else. So while I'll get to what she's doing momentarily, I have Alexa Bliss as the champion going against the upstart Ember Moon, who's not really being used right now. She very easily could have been the next in line to challenge Alexa Bliss. Makes a lot of sense because, one, it gets Ember Moon over. Even if Alexa wins, it's a great scenario for Ember to kind of be in the spotlight. And I think that she has enough support that people would have viewed her as a legitimate contender. Makes sense because you keep Alexa occupied and away from Ronda Rousey, and you really help Ember Moon in the process.
Not bad. I would have went with Bayley versus Sasha with the title involved in their feud. One of them be the champ, and you're basically duplicating their NXT TakeOver Brooklyn matchup of a couple years ago that people have been wanting to see. And then that would have you could have Alexa Bliss still wrestling Ronda Rousey, but without the title involved, because I agree with you that I think it's a little too soon for Ronda to win it or even have a title match. I think then it serves both purposes. You still get the Bayley-Sasha feud for the title that people want to see, and Bliss is still in a very high-profile matchup, probably more high-profile because she's wrestling Ronda Rousey and you don't have a title involved.
That also works for me. However, I started to look ahead to Evolution, which is end of October?
October 26th or something like that.
So
Yeah,
there's a little ways to go. There's going to be over 2 months after SummerSlam, but I'm thinking if that's the biggest women's show ever, and they're going to pull out all the stops, that's when Ronda Rousey challenges and wins the title.
I would have been okay with that.
And I think that's when she should challenge and defeat Alexa Bliss. So what do you have Ronda Rousey do in the meantime? The obvious thing that we've seen for months coming, her and Natalya. Why hold off? It looks as though maybe that might be Ronda's title defense at Evolution is against Natalya. To me, that's not a big-time match compared to Ronda winning her first title then. If she wins it now at SummerSlam and has this blood feud against Natalya at Evolution, that's a step below her winning the title for the first time against Alexa Bliss in my estimation. So I would rather have Ronda Rousey and Natty go at it now because you already have been hinting towards that, and that kind of keeps her away from the title for another 2 or so months.
I mean, I like that. I mean, I couldn't do that in my scenario because, Bliss doesn't have the title. But Ronda could then face Bayley or Sasha, at Evolution, and that would be the main event. The last image would be her holding the title, but with streamers coming down, and it would be all plastered all over the mainstream media. ESPN would cover it, TMZ. I mean, that's what WWE would want.
But it'll be overshadowed if she wins it at SummerSlam. Right?
I mean, it's still going to get coverage, but yeah, I mean, that's...
it's not going to be the biggest thing at SummerSlam. We know that.
No, not at all. But at that pay-per-view, for the women, it would have been the number one thing.
Right. And by the way, I did not include Sasha and Bayley at SummerSlam because I think they will have their one-on-one match at Evolution. I think they're waiting for that, and I'm fine with that because that match is going to be incredible if they really do what they are capable of.
I agree with you, and I'm okay with that now the way it went. But the way it was looking a month ago, I think maybe before they decided they were going to hold this pay-per-view, they clearly looked like they were setting it up for SummerSlam. And I just hate the way they stopped and restarted the thing. Once you started it, and that great, I don't know if it was a turn by Bayley, but her attack on Sasha, how the crowd reacted so well to it. I felt like you just had to run with it then. I think even when it does happen, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know if it's going to have the same steam because we already got a glimpse and it got, restarted.
Yeah, I feel like that's the Braun Strowman issue right now as well.
Yeah.
The other women's title match on SmackDown, and I'll kind of be a little more quick with this one. I want Asuka to be the champion right now. She very easily could have defeated Carmella at Extreme Rules. So I have Asuka as the champion. I have Becky Lynch as the challenger. I'm fine with Asuka kind of being the tweener, maybe leaning a little bit more towards heel in this feud. Have Becky Lynch go against her. Ultimately, I'm looking long term. Asuka, your champion, defends against Charlotte at Evolution in the rematch of WrestleMania. Then you wonder what's going to happen there because the roles are reversed. Now Charlotte is challenging. Yes, the streak's not intact, but Asuka's looking for revenge. That's a big money match to me. But I think what they're actually going to end up doing, Charlotte against Becky at Evolution, that will be big in itself. That being said, I don't want Carmella involved, and I think Asuka and Becky could have been an incredible match that I don't believe we've really seen to this point.
Correct. I mean, I love your idea. My thought on the women's match is Asuka as champion, the same as you, but I actually would have had the rematch from WrestleMania. And that's also going with the notion that they weren't going to have a rematch the following pay-per-view after WrestleMania. Asuka wins at WrestleMania. You hold off the rematch and build it back up again for SummerSlam, and then maybe that's when Asuka finally loses. Charlotte gets the win, and then you run the program with Becky. But
knowing that Asuka lost at WrestleMania, do you still go forward with Charlotte and Asuka?
No. If I was doing my long-term booking, I would have had Asuka as champion, leaving WrestleMania, holding it through SummerSlam for the big rematch. That's how I would have planned it out.
Staying on SmackDown, Randy Orton, Jeff Hardy. It's got to be one-on-one between those two. That's a no-brainer. I don't know what they're ultimately going to do on SmackDown. Right now, as it stands, it's Jeff Hardy against Nakamura for the U.S. title. Very bizarre. Probably ends up as a triple threat. I have those two do it one-on-one. Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton do not need a title for this feud to continue to kick butt. But what do you do with Nakamura? I'll go a little bit off the radar here. His challenger is Big E. Now, I could have said Kofi Kingston. I think Big E's probably the guy more than any that needs the singles push and have it start now. And I think that you can still have the other guys in the New Day involved, which I'll get to. But Big E, yeah, him and Nakamura maybe don't mesh perfectly, but Big E's deserving of a push, deserving of at least a secondary title opportunity. And I think, that's a pretty good match because Nakamura's a guy, that's high mid-card. He's not a main event superstar that maybe we thought he would be, but it still gets Big E over being in the same ring as Nakamura.
Again, I like your idea. I would be okay with that idea. I agree everything you say with Orton and Jeff, so we don't need to rehash that. Totally agree. My thought was Nakamura defending the title against Rusev. Here's a guy who got himself pretty over, the Rusev Day chance. He's a former U.S. champion, but this time he's, going for the belt as a face. He just came off a loss to AJ Styles. He needs a little something, a rebound. I think a feud with Shinsuke Nakamura, would have worked for him. That's how I would have booked it.
And I'll be honest, Justin, as I said, I had 11, maybe 12 matches, as I'll get to one other that kind of is a throw-in. I did not include Rusev, and if I had gone one more match, probably it either would have been the Raw Tag Team titles, which I did not include in my dream card, or it would have been something involving Rusev, because after challenging for the WWE title, you do want to keep him involved, no doubt. I did not include him, but that's certainly a guy that should not be overlooked, to your point. But I mentioned that I don't have the Raw Tag Team titles on my card. I do have the SmackDown Tag Team titles. And I didn't go too far from what they're doing. I think the Bludgeon Brothers, they're fine as champions, but I would like to see them have more competitive matches. To me, the big letdown at WrestleMania and their triple threat with the Usos and New Day, I expected that match to be great. It was not. It was just a dominant performance. I want them to have a competitive match, and I also think you could have them against the New Day. At this point, however, it's simply Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. But those two guys, even though they are well outsized, I guess, if you will, by the Bludgeon Brothers, I think that their speed still makes for a good match. Those two, even without Big E, could put on a very impressive tag team exhibition. So I'm fine with Bludgeon and New Day, even using Big E in another scenario. I think that still works, at least for now. I know you said you're sick of the New Day. I still think they're the best option amongst the teams that currently exist on SmackDown.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not sick of the New Day. It's just, like I said, I like them. They're entertaining, but at some point, you just need somebody new. I like the match. The only other thing I guess you could have done maybe is to get the other tag teams in there, like a 4-way, which that gets outdone a lot. But yeah, I'm okay with that match all in all.
So I have two more, and they're on Raw, and I'm going to be honest, I had a lot of guys on Raw left over, and I'm thinking, how am I going to include them all? So sometimes you throw guys into a match together, and I put Finn Balor against Dolph Ziggler, and I think Finn winning the the Intercontinental title, while it's not maybe what you had hoped with him challenging for the Universal, him winning the Intercontinental title would be a nice little boost for him, and I think he and Ziggler, those guys, that just looks like it's going to be a good match, right? When you see those two against, line up across the ring from another, I think that would be a very competitive match and a good match that you don't have to really make as a focal point, but it's one of those matches that it's going to be one of the top matches on the card. And with that occupying the Intercontinental title, you have a lot of other guys that are main event guys, but they don't have a title match. So you make a number one contenders match for the Universal title. You have all these guys who've been waiting in line. Brock Lesnar's not been around enough. They haven't gotten their chances. So you throw together 6 guys I came up with. 6-pack challenge. Roman Reigns, he's always challenging for the title. But I'd rather have him in a number one contenders match for it than actually facing Lesnar at SummerSlam. Braun Strowman, yes, he has Money in the Bank, but you need to have him involved in SummerSlam. Bobby Lashley. So you have Roman, Braun, and Lashley. I'm excited at the idea of those 3 being in the match together just to see the crazy spots that they could put together where they're just throwing bodies around. And then you mix in 3 heels. Kevin Owens, Elias, and Drew McIntyre. So I think you have 6 really top guys in that match. Yes, they don't get their individual spotlight with one-on-one, but it's a packed card already, and I think some of those guys, they kind of just have to settle for maybe not the typical marquee that they're used to, but you get at least most of your top guys on Raw involved in some capacity.
I mean, I did not go that far to think of an all-time match like that. I mean, my IC title match actually would have been Dolph versus Elias, strictly one-on-one. Elias had that great match with Seth Rollins for the
Do you
IC
turn him
title.
face, or do you kind of just do a heel versus heel for now?
Heel versus heel, let them both be kind of tweener, because honestly, for me today, I think the heel versus face, it's old school. I don't think you need it. Let people just cheer who they want to cheer. You get away with that today. And, let Elias do his thing. And coming off his debut album, this is how you follow up on that hype. He has the one-on-one match with Dolph. I think the match would be, something that I think people would be surprised of. Maybe people would look on paper and go, okay, it's going to be a solid match, but it could be a show stealer. I do believe that. And that's where finally, Dolph and
McIntyre.
McIntyre have their falling out. McIntyre accidentally hits Dolph or whatever. Elias, that's how Elias wins the title. He becomes champ. He gets the momentum from the album, then winning, and then Dolph goes into his feud with McIntyre.
That makes sense. One other thing I did want to touch on, I said, would kind of be the 12th match. I am, 6 months behind on 205 Live, but I'm behind the idea that they get a cruiserweight title match at SummerSlam. Yeah, it's going to be on the pre-show, but I think it's deserved. I thought it was deserved at WrestleMania between Cedric and Mustafa to determine the champ. Cedric's still the champ. I know Drew Gulak is challenging. I'm not up enough on the storylines to know if that's really the best option, but whether you have him, Tony Nese, Buddy Murphy, Leo Rush, Cedric against someone that's going to put on the best match. My only concern is Gulak's not a typical 205 Live. He's a grappler. He's a slower pace, that it might not lead to the most exciting match. And for fans that don't watch the show, I think you need to have a breathtaking match. But I want the Cruiserweight title defended. Anyone that you think would be a real good challenger to kind of showcase the skill of that division?
Well, I mean, I'm okay with what they have, the match itself. What I would do, though, and I mean, it's pretty, like you said, it's probably going to be on the pre-show, I would love for them to get the main card. Because at some point, if you keep putting these guys always on the pre-show, what are you telling the average fan? That these guys aren't that important. So what gives them a reason to watch that show? Or for these guys ever to become more than what they are? I mean, wouldn't the goal to be to pull some of these guys on the main, the actual, Raw or SmackDown at some point?
You would think some guys like Gargano and Ciampa that are in the 205, well, actually Ciampa might have grown out of that 205 weight class, but anyway, you would think those guys will go to Raw or SmackDown as opposed to 205 Live.
You would hope, but is it the point people look back at the Cruiserweight division, which was awesome in WCW, and people like Jericho and stuff left because he said, well, that was the glass ceiling for us. They didn't see us outside that. And then they go to WWE, and Jericho becomes a huge star. There's guys at 205 Live that, maybe have that ability, or at least be a solid upper mid-card guy on the, Raw or SmackDown, that they're not getting showcased enough, they're being pigeonholed, and it sucks for them. I mean, like you said, I think there's going to be probably 3 pre-show matches. And let me ask you, what 3 matches do you think are going to be on the pre-show?
The Raw Tag title.
I hope it better. Well, yeah, I was going to say the Raw Tag Team match should be on there.
Which I didn't even have them. I didn't even include it on my card. It doesn't deserve it.
Honestly, the other match I'm thinking that deserves to be on there, and it kills me because I actually like both guys, is Finn and Corbin. I mean, really, what does that match have?
Rusev or Aiden, maybe those two end up on there. But I would agree, Corbin and Finn would be more likely probably to be on the pre-show because we've already seen it.
It sucks for both of them because I like both of them, but honestly, that feud, that match, what does it have to make it on the? It doesn't have anything. And right now, Rusev, what is he going to do? I see coming a mixed tag match with Aiden causing Rusev and Lana a match with Vega and
Andrade.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. That match will get maybe thrown onto the card on Tuesday.
It could. At least as far as our dream scenario, we weren't on the same page, but do you think that would be a significantly better show, all told?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, way too many rematches, and I can't wait to see the reaction for Lesnar and Roman. Can't wait. And I'm not hoping that the crowd pisses on it, or I actually would probably be upset if they're really into it and cheer Roman like Vince wants, just because I think it vindicates him. And I don't hate Roman at all. I just think the build-up and everything they've done with him has just been horrible.
It has to end in a Strowman cash-in, or else fans aren't going to be happy, no matter what.
I hope not. I hope it does. I mean, if not that I would call for this, but honestly, I would get a little pleasure out of fans actually getting up and walking out, because that's the only thing that would actually get his attention. Booing,
right? It sucks for Roman. It really sucks for Roman, but for the long term, that's probably the one thing that gets Vince's attention.
Right now, without strong competition, which that needs to be a maybe topic for next week, because there's a lot of stuff I would like to discuss about what's coming up in the indie world with All In.
Oh, we're definitely, so that's on September 1st, and we plan to watch it. So if nothing else, we will preview it a couple days before, guaranteed.
And the card in Madison Square Garden for Ring of Honor and the G1 from New Japan, which 60% of tickets were already sold in pre-sale before they even gone until the public. That's looking like that's going to be a sellout. So there's big happenings in the wrestling world in general right now outside of WWE that I think we need to discuss, and WWE's reaction to it, and stuff like that maybe next week we can dive into.
Well, that was our idea for how we would make SummerSlam. Card's not finalized yet, but it looks like it's pretty much in place for both Raw and SmackDown, with the show being just about 10 days away from now. So that's going to do it for this 20th week of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. For my host, Justin Lowery, I'm Sean Meyers. Once again, you can follow us on Twitter, 5-Star Pod Wrestle. You can like our channel on YouTube, which has all of our old videos each and every week. We're adding to them as well. But that's going to do it. So check us out again next week here on the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling.